This is a very fast and easy way to create these wooden boards indeed. Here we can link a texture or a map to affect the roughness. And this is exactly what we need to create realistic layers. And so now we should figure out how to bring together those two maps so that they work simultaneously without being in one another's way. Hi guys, welcome back to Render.courses. In this video we're gonna create this very nice worn out kind of looking floor. And we'll create geometry and set up the materials. We're gonna use Corona Render 9 and a new Corona Physical MTL shader. I will also show you how to create the glares and worn out effect that you see in this image. Okay, so first we'll work in Photoshop and create the texture of these wooden boards. And I'm gonna show you how to slice the texture for the boards fast and easy. Okay, so for that, let's head over to Photoshop, and I have this wood texture over here, and we're gonna use a multi-material that will randomly scatter the texture on each individual floorboard. But first, we'll need to slice this texture into several parts. And with Slice tool selected, we'll do a right mouse click on the texture. Select Divide Slice and check Divide horizontally into. Since we're going to slice the boards horizontally, we'll select Divide horizontally into and indicate how many boards we need to create. Let's make 10. That should be enough. And we'll click OK and then press Ctrl-Alt-Shift-S, all 4 keys at the same time. And here comes the save for web window. Click Save and select the folder in which you want to save the boards. I've already prepared a special folder for this specifically. So save, and Photoshop saves each board individually. Let's check. Here are the images folder that contains our boards. This is a very fast and easy way to create these wooden boards indeed. Okay, now let's go back to 3ds Max. So here I have a test scene that I used to test various materials. To create the floor object, we're gonna use the floor generator plugin, and you'll need to download and install it first. It's pretty simple. You just need to copy the plugin file to the plugin folder in your 3ds Max and then restart your computer. Okay, so what do you need to know before creating a wooden floor? I recommend that you create an underlying floor. It's a concrete floor that lies below your wooden floor. And why do we need it? When you create a wooden floor, there are small gaps left between the boards, and unless there's some object below this floor, light will be coming through these gaps, creating highlighted areas, and we don't want that. So this is why we need to create the underlying floor. We press T to switch to top view, select the walls, objects, and use spline to contour the perimeter of the rooms. So press Alt Q to switch to isolate selection, and next create a line. Enable 2.5D snaps and check vertex. Now we contour the entire perimeter of the room. We need 2.5D snaps in order to create a spline within the same plane. Alright, the spline is ready. Now let's make sure it lies within the same plane. And it does. And now we need the floor generator plugin. We'll go to Modify tab and look for floor generator. And I press F key. It's the letter the modifier starts with. And now we're going to easily locate floor generator. Floor generator has been applied, and now we need to set its parameters. The maximum board length. I have some settings saved from the previous lesson, so let's check them out. But first we need to select the floor pattern. There's herringbone, there's chevron, and other types. So let's go with the standard. Now the board length is 2 meters. Maximum width is 20 centimeters. Let's make it 25. Take note of this parameter, grout length. Its default value stands at 1 millimeter. It's a gap between the boards. And it's best to remove it altogether so that the boards are tightly put against one another. So we enter a 0 value here. And our next parameter are extrude and bevel. Well, let's set extrude to 1. And as for bevel, let's make it 1 millimeter. Its default value is around 0.5. The bevel this size is too big. Doesn't look very realistic, so 1 millimeter should look much better. The boards tend to lie perpendicular to the window. To change the direction of your boards, you need to set the direction parameter to 90 degrees. In this case, we'll leave it at 0. So these are the basic settings that we need to set up the floor. But of course you can use other settings to your taste. And now let's go to Material Editor. But first I'd like to invite you to join our training program. It's a complete 3D exterior visualization course. You'll master the profession of a 3D architecture visualizer. You will learn how to model architectural elements in 3ds Max. You will also learn how to work with materials, light sources, and cameras, how to optimize scenes and create commercial visualizations for clients. So I highly recommend this course to everyone watching. You'll find a link in the description to this video. All right, let's go back to 3ds Max. We press M key to open Material Editor. I'll create a new tab. Do a right mouse click, and here comes the Create New View window. We'll name it Floor 2 and drag Corona Physical Material to Editor and assign it to our wooden floor by clicking Assign Material to Selection. Next, we'll select the camera. And I've already created a dedicated camera for this purpose. Then we'll switch off Isolate Selection and start the interactive render. We go to Render Settings and Start Interactive. The render has started. Select the floor region to make it render faster. And now we can move on to material setup. I move the interactive render to the left, material editor is to the right. We're going to use Corona Physical MTL because I think it's easier to use. If you have an older version of Corona Render, you can use Corona Legacy MTL. And the main difference between the two is that before, to set up glares, we had to adjust glossiness parameter. And now we're gonna work with roughness. But first, we need to assign the texture to our floor. So we're gonna use a multi-material, select Corona Multi-Map from the list, drag it to Material Editor, and link it to base color. The material has been assigned, although it's yellow. So we have 6 colors here. This material allows us to randomly distribute textures over objects. To enable this function, we need to check mesh element. And what do we see? The colors have been distributed all over the floor in a random fashion. So now we need to assign the texture. And you remember that in the beginning of this video, we sliced the texture into long stripes. And now we need to load them here. So we go to Badge, Load Textures, and then copy the path to the textures, paste it here, and click Open. This is our folder. Select all the textures and click Open. The textures have loaded automatically. And we already have something that looks like a wooden floor. But as you can see, it still needs improving. So we'll adjust the gamma random parameter. And what it does is it allows us to randomly shift the texture's gamma. Let me show you. We set it to 5%. See, the boards now have different shades. I guess it's too much. Let's make it 2%. So by adjusting gamma, we can add a chaotic effect to our textures. Now let's also reduce blur multiplier to make our textures clearer. Now let's set up the material. We'll do double click on the material and find the roughness parameter. Let's see how it works. If we set it to 0, roughness is gone, and the floor becomes glossy. And if we set it to 1, the floor surface becomes very rough. So that's the idea. Here we can link a texture or a map to affect the roughness. And this is exactly what we need to create realistic glares. These glares come from unevenly worn out spots on the floor surface. It's not uncommon that varnish penetrates into the wood unevenly, which creates glares. So let's assign the map. But we'll do it this way. We'll take the same map, Corona Multi-Map, and link it to color correction. And we need to make it black and white, because the roughness parameter only takes into account the brightness of the texture. The lighter the texture, the stronger the glares, and it also works the other way around. So we'll go to General and drag color correction to Editor. Then we'll link Corona Multi-Map to color correction. All right, next we check monochrome. The map has turned black and white, and we'll link it to base roughness. So now the floor has those kind of irregular glares. In some spots the glares have become glossier, while in others more kind of matte. And this is exactly what we need right now. So managing this effect is pretty easy. For example, by changing the color correction parameters. We switch to the advanced mode and find the gamma parameter. And then what we do is we increase gamma to 2, and the floor gets glossier. We reduce it to 0.5 and it becomes more matte. Increase it to 3 and the floor is glossy once again. So the higher the value, the lighter the map. The more matte is the surface. So we'll probably should leave it at 2. So in the beginning of this video, the floor had those kinds of signs of wear. So this effect can transition from one board to another. The boards wear out unevenly in reality, but we can still see such transitions on the floor. So we need to take that into consideration. So let's add another texture to Material Editor. And I've prepared this map here in advance. It has shoe prints and some dirty spots, and I think it will help us create the effect of an old, worn out floor. So let's go ahead and drag it to Material Editor. And so now we should figure out how to bring together those two maps so that they work simultaneously without being in one another's way. This is where the composite map comes in handy. We'll drag the composite map here, add it between color correction and base roughness, and select layer 1. The composite map is multi-layer, and we can create any number of layers, and they will have different blend modes, just like in Photoshop. There's multiply, lighten, screen, and other various blend modes that you probably know from Photoshop. We can also change their opacity, and that's very convenient. We can create a large number of layers. Okay, so we linked our black and white color correction to composite map as layer 1, and now let's link our texture with shoe prints and stains to layer 2. And we can see that the floor has changed, and that is because map 2 is higher than map 1, and their blend mode is normal, which means that map 2 prevails. So map 2 has changed the color, but its effect is not quite what we need. And why is that? Because mapping UVW map affects each board individually. But what we want is, we want these shoe prints and stains to be located all across the boards. So we need to make changes to mapping UVW map. We're gonna use second channel. The floor textures use channel 1, while the stains texture will use channel 2. And so they won't overlap. So we'll do a double click on bitmap and enter map channel 2. Next, we need to assign the UVW map modifier to the floor, select it from the list, and once again enter map channel 2. Okay, good. Now let's take a look at the mapping. And we'll open Material Editor, select Bitmap, and show shaded material. And already we can see that the texture scale is way too large. So let's reduce that. Just like 2 by 2 should do it. And you can shift the UVW map gizmo, but in this case, I don't think it's necessary. So we go back to Material Editor and we'll adjust the way of how the map affects our stains. We don't have to use color correction. So first we need to invert the map. That's because the now glares are not working properly. So we do double click on the map, go to the Output tab and check Invert. And the floor has become glossy, but the shoe prints and mud stains are now visible. So this is not enough though. We need to make the map slightly brighter, perhaps. So to do that, we can edit it right in the Output tab. Check Enable Color Map, and we need to add a Bezier point onto this curve. We select Bezier here, place a point here in the middle, and bend the curve upwards. And that makes for a stronger effect because the map has become more contrasting. And we can see it here. Now let's see how the output works. Here are the shoe prints, the light, and that means the shoe prints on the floor will be less glossy, just like we need them. So I like how it looks. Now we need to set the blend mode for these two maps in order to combine board material properties and all sorts of imperfections. So we go to Composite Layers and select the Screen mode. These two maps will overlap in light, bright spots. Surely you can experiment a little with the modes. For instance, if you need a glossier effect, you can use the multiple mode. But in this case, I think it's better to just use Screen. So we select Screen. And I can see that the effect is still too strong. So let's reduce opacity to 30%. Okay, good. Let's take a closer look. So this is the effect that we've created. If you need to add scratches, you can assign the map to this bump slot here. But in this case, I think scratches will be too much actually. So I like how it looks now. And that's it for today. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, sign up for our big training course. We'll see you in the next lessons. Bye.